I'm doing a clear out of my collection to make some space for some new fragrances, and in today's video I want to talk about why I'm getting rid of these fragrances and why I generally regret buying them. Now, when I say I regret buying them, I'm not saying that these are necessarily bad scents. Actually, some of these deserve a 10 out of 10 actually, but I'm getting rid of them for personal reasons. I'll explain now. Let's begin. The original Paco Rabanne Invictus. Now, when I first smelled this fragrance, maybe like 8 years ago, I really loved this scent. This kind of got me into fragrances in general. It really got me to explore more of the industry. I love this as a beginner, and I think that's fine. Nowadays, I think it's a bit of a synthetic mess. It is bubblegum perfumery. It's very iconic for that style. It smells fresh, clean, citrusy, with some very soapy, synthetic smelling musks, which I think is what annoys a lot of people with this scent. It smells outdated. The issue with a lot of Paco Rabanne stuff, as you'll see in this video in general, is that they use a lot of synthetics, things that smell trendy and cool for their time, but they feel outdated really quickly, in my opinion. I feel like you get that often with Paco Rabanne. Paco Rabanne's Invictus was iconic at its time. I feel like nowadays a lot of its flankers are better. If you want a fresher and more modern take on the DNA, go for the new Parfum and the new angled bottle. And if you want a sweeter take on Invictus, go for Invictus Victory Elixir, a really solid fragrance. Paco Rabanne's original 1 million. Again, a very sexy fragrance. I'm not saying if you wear these scents you won't get compliments. You probably will still, because a lot of people still haven't actually smelled a lot of the mainstream stuff, or they don't really know it too well. This is a great scent. It's iconic. But again, it feels like a product of its time, of around 2008. Thick, bubblegum, sweet, amber perfumery with some citruses up top. It's got some leather in there. It's got some sexy masculinity to it. It used to be the clubbing scent back in the day. I think you can still wear it for clubbing, honestly. This bottle performs well enough, in my opinion, to do so. I think you can wear it for dates. I think it's youthful. I think it's a great scent to at least try because it's iconic. But nowadays, as a reviewer, I can't recommend it to you guys. I never reach for it, so it has to go. There are better alternatives in today's market. 37.9% of people who watch School of Scent are subscribed to us. If you guys really want to see our channel grow, go ahead and click subscribe. Let's get that number to 40%. Thank you. Paco Rabanne's 1 million Lucky. Now, it pains me to say anything bad about this flanker because I actually really like this. This is a great flanker. This has a very unique idea of smelling like hazelnut, caramel, popcorn with an ozonic bright cloudiness to it is how I would describe this. A very unique scent that's fresh yet sexy and gourmand at the same time. 6 hours longevity, a great date fragrance. Unfortunately, I believe this flanker is discontinued. So for me, as a reviewer, I don't really talk about it that much because of that fact, but also I don't really wear this myself as a, let's say, more mature gentleman. I feel like this is more suitable for teenagers, you youthful audience members out there. You would have loved this if you could still get it. If you can get it or you still have a bottle, fair enough, enjoy it. If you're a younger guy, even older guys can get compliments with this, but for me, it just smells more youthful. It's not my style anymore and it's discontinued, so it has to go. But it's a great scent, great flanker. Haramain L'Aventure. Now, you might be surprised seeing this on the list because I always recommend this as the accurate clone of Creed Aventus, and the long-lasting clone of Creed Aventus is Club de Nuit Intense Man Eau de Parfum. However, because I now actually do own a bottle of Creed Aventus, if I wanted the DNA, I'd go for that. I don't even reach for the original Aventus either, so there's no big hate on this scent. It's the fact that I have several Aventus-esque DNAs in my collection. I don't really get excited by Aventus DNAs in general anymore, and usually for compliment factor, I recommend Club de Nuit Intense Man Eau de Parfum. I feel like that has a higher compliment factor just because of the performance. It's a bit more simple, easier to understand. It's a great clone as well. However, I do say this is more accurate to the original Creed Aventus. This still has good performance around 8 hours, so it's definitely a very solid scent. I could still easily give this a 10 out of 10. But for me, in my collection, I don't really need this anymore. I've talked about this so many times on the channel. You guys know about this. Get it if you want. I'm gonna get rid of it and give it a new home. Lattafa Asad. Again, you've seen me on the channel give this a 10 out of 10. I still think it deserves that score, but this is a lesson for all of you out there watching this segment of the video, because I've said in a previous video on how to stop wasting your money on the wrong fragrances. If you don't like the original DNA of a scent that much, is there any point in you getting a clone? Because are you even going to reach for it if you're a collector? For me, I never liked the original Sauvage Elixir that much. Lattafa Asad takes that Middle Eastern, spicy, intense masculine DNA, tones it down a bit, freshens it up. It's not as high quality smelling, but it still smells high quality for its price, if you know what I mean, and it still lasts a long time. I do think this is a great clone, but this DNA just isn't for me. If I wanted something similar to this, I have Oud for Greatness in my collection. I would reach for that first over this, but I've recommended this many times on the channel and I still do. It's time for this to find a new home. Chopard Oud Malaki. Now, this is a fragrance I bought because of the fact that you can find this very affordably on discounters. It smells high quality, the presentation is great, high quality also. It's useful to have as a beginner oud scent to reference to you guys, but it's not real oud, of course. It's more of a dry cedarwood scent with some fuzzy spices in here and a little bit of incense. And I own already Blazing Mr Sam by Penhaligon's, or if you own Halfeti, I feel like this is the more simplistic version of those scents, not as high quality. It doesn't smell as sexy as I wanted to either. I feel like if I was going to recommend a beginner oud scent nowadays, I might say Gucci Intense Oud. If it's still in production, I think it is. This is not bad. It smells high quality, but I just never find myself ever reaching for this. And if I'm never reaching for it, if I don't find this particularly alluring, then should I be recommending it to you guys? And performance is okay, about 6 hours. It's still a solid scent, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it needs to be in my collection anymore. Guy Laroche Drakkar Intense. I got this flanker because I was intrigued. Obviously, Drakkar Noir is the most iconic in the lineup. This is a different take. It's not the same Drakkar Noir line. Actually, it's actually a flanker of the original Drakkar, which a lot of people didn't even know existed. I never tried that scent. Drakkar Intense, though, is good quality for the price you are paying. It's ambery, almost a little bit boozy in a way. It's a very nice evening scent that's very smoothed out. It definitely smells higher quality than its price tag. Lasts around 4 to 6 hours at most. I just feel like I never really reached for this, and if I was going to recommend you an amber scent around this price range for the evening, I just say go for Dolce&Gabbana, the one Eau de Parfum. I feel like it achieves a similar effect, but it's more sexy. It's a little bit more expensive, fair enough, but I would just say save up and get that instead, actually. So I find myself never really reaching for this, and it also reminds me of another fragrance called Azzaro Pour Homme Intense, which got discontinued. I feel like that was a great scent, and this kind of always reminds me of that, and it makes me think, okay, I'm just smelling the not as sexy version of a fragrance like that. I want that fragrance to come back instead, really. I feel like this is redundant in my collection as it is. Chanel's Pour Monsieur Eau de Parfum. This fragrance probably deserves a 9 out of 10. I think it's a very well blended, amber-based, sweeter fougere. You can wear it pretty much all year round. It's mature, classical, gentlemanly. The Eau de Toilette smells outdated. I don't really recommend that to most guys nowadays, but the Eau de Parfum I think is more solid, more modern, and I get about 6 hours. But again, I have other fragrances in my collection that fits in this role that are better as well, like Eau Sauvage Parfum. They're not necessarily clones, but definitely fit in the same family. Amber-based barbershop fougères, but Eau Sauvage Parfum is longer lasting. It smells a little bit more sexy in my opinion as well. And there's also another fragrance in my collection called Fougère d'Argent by Tom Ford. It's not amber-based, that fragrance is a bit more fresh and crisp, but if I wanted a fougère fix in my daily wearings, I'd go for that instead of this. This is a solid scent, but it no longer needs to be in my collection. Chanel's Original Egoiste. Although I think this is a masterful blend, and I feel like this would have been great for the 90s, I think nowadays I don't really recommend this to people. It's mature, spicy, rose and sandalwood is how I describe this fragrance. It has an elegance to it. It is professional, mature. I'm sure there are some guys who absolutely love this, they die by this, but for me, I feel like the ingredients aren't that particularly expensive smelling. I know this kind of sandalwood they're using here. I use it in my amateur perfumery as well. They're using something called Javanol, which is quite sharp. It's not the creamy kind of sandalwood that I like. I usually like more creamy scents like Santal Blush, Sandalo by Acqua di Parma, or even the new Ensalade by Marc-Antoine Barrault. This is not my kind of sandalwood scent. I feel like it smells a little bit outdated. I feel like only a very select few kind of people will like this style. So definitely try before you buy. Still a great scent though. I can't fault it for what it is, but it's just not my style, not for me anymore in my collection. Versace Dylan Blue. Now I tested this fragrance many years back in a department store when I believe the fragrance was actually stronger. I feel that Dylan Blue did get reformulated at one point, but if I want to describe the scent to you, it's a youthful, aquatic, darker blue scent. It's sort of like if Acqua di Gio had a baby with Bleu de Chanel, had a baby with Sauvage, it has some Brox in there as well. I think it's a nice scent for teenagers, but I've always hated on this scent. I can't really give it more than a 7 out of 10. I don't really like the blend, I don't really like the ingredients. I think the performance is not that great anymore either. This bottle gives me around 6 hours, but I remember that tester was definitely stronger. I feel like if you have the older bottles that are a bit more beastly, then you can argue that this would be a great compliment puller. I still think it will be good for compliments. It's mass appealing, it's easy to understand, but as a collector, I want you guys to have better than fragrances like that. I want you to get the very best, very top quality stuff. So for me, there are better blue scents out there. The market for blue fragrances is a little bit saturated nowadays, and there are definitely better options to choose from. But hey, I had this for review purposes. I never really actually wanted to buy this, but hey, it was useful over the years, but I think it's time for it to go now. Dior Homme 2020. Oh boy, does this always get me hate when I mention my opinions on it. I regret buying this fragrance. I knew I would, but everyone kept telling me this is a great scent. This is a 7 out of 10. It's not bad, but I will always say this is the poor man's Bleu de Chanel. I definitely think there's a comparison there, and there's some people on Fragrantica who say that this fragrance does remind them of Bleu de Chanel, the Eau de Parfum. They have similarities in the fact that they both contain citruses, some sparkling pink pepper, ambers, cedarwood, a lot of isoe super. You can definitely see the notes are overlapping there, but Bleu de Chanel is a bit more classy, more masterful in this blend. There's more going on. This came out obviously, what, 10 years after Bleu de Chanel. I feel like they wanted a fragrance that was sort of in that same style. It's not a clone, but it's in the same style, I would say. This is a simplistic scent that is mass appealing. I think if you're a beginner, you will love this fragrance. It has a nice sillage, fair enough. It'll get you compliments. It lasts around 6 to 8 hours, while Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum, I get 8 hours personally, so I get slightly better performance. This has medium projection. This has great versatility, but I don't want this in my collection because, first of all, I don't think it's that great. And also, I said that Bleu de Chanel is better. I would reach for that. And also, if you like the ingredients used here instead of Bleu de Chanel, you like the specific charm of Dior Homme 2020. Dior Homme Sport 2021 to me feels like what this fragrance should have been. That feels more complete. It has more richness to it. It has more character. It's doing its own thing more instead of reminding me of Bleu de Chanel. So I would just go for Dior Homme Sport 2021. I would say skip this. That is my personal opinion, but I know I'll get hate for these comments. Hey, if you like this fragrance, good for you. I'm gonna get rid of it personally. Kenzo Homme Eau de Parfum. This is a solid fragrance. To me, I've always said, if you enjoy Armani Code and you want something aquatic, but sort of reminiscent of that line, you go for this. I'm not saying they're clones, but it has that sort of beginner-friendly maturity in there like the Armani Code line does. It's simple, fig, suede, aquatic notes is how I describe it. It's smooth, but still synthetic. And I think it's the fact that it's so simplistic and very synthetic in the way it's mainstream design and perfumery. Made by a great perfumer, I think it was Quentin Bish who made this fragrance. It's got great longevity, great versatility. It's worth checking out if you're a slightly more mature gentleman who wants a more mature style. If you want the style in general, you don't have to be necessarily old to rock this. I feel like a lot of age groups can rock this. You want at least 8 hours performance, all seasons wearability, a different sort of take on the aquatic family. Get this fragrance. But for me, I have other aquatics I'd rather choose. If I want something more fresh and bright, I'd go for something like Light Blue Intense. If I want a versatile, mass-pleasing aquatic, I'd go for Acqua di Gio Parfum. If I want something as deep and rich as this, I'd go for something like 40 Knots by Xerjoff. It's more expensive, but that'd be my go-to. I feel like that's more interesting than this. I'm not reaching for this, but it's a great scent overall. L'Envol de Cartier Eau Toilette. Now, I've recommended this fragrance in the past as well, but for me, I just found that over the years, I've actually struggled to ever pick this out because I feel like it's a bit too heavy for the summertime, and then in the cooler weather, I feel like I have more interesting fragrances to choose from. This is a simplistic citrus, honey, musk fragrance. Not too much going on, but it's nicely blended. It is smooth. I do appreciate it. I feel like a certain guy, again, particular style, would like this fragrance. It's not bad in its performance, around 6 hours. I feel like maybe the Eau de Parfum is what I should have chose. That goes less versatile, it's more all in and cold weather, but I feel like it's probably a little bit more interesting in a note breakdown if you see it on screen right now. Maybe I recommend going for that version. Maybe I need to try more Cartier fragrances, but I just never found myself reaching for this. But this is a cool bottle, good quality, good presentation. Try it out anyways, it's a good scent. And lastly, Tom Ford's Black Orchid Parfum. I'm not a huge fan of dark fragrances in general. There's only a handful I really like, but in Tom Ford itself, there are other scents I'd pick in there, like the original Noir is my more preferred dark fragrance in their collection. Black Orchid, I never really liked this DNA, whether it's the Eau de Toilette, the Eau de Parfum, or the Parfum, or even its clones as well. I don't really see why I should have this in my collection. I don't think Black Orchid is a bad DNA. I think it's very creative, very dense, thick, complex. Usually involves things like a lot of vanilla, a lot of dark patchouli, florals, and some interesting notes like chocolate or truffles usually in the Eau de Parfum. I feel like the Parfum simplified the scent a little bit more. It wasn't as annoying to wear. The Eau de Parfum I felt was too intense and cloying, a little bit too feminine as well for my liking, but I can see why some people love it. It's definitely still respectable for being a creative DNA overall, but the Parfum I liked more because it was a little bit more masculine, a little bit more simplified, and it had an interesting rum note in here, which I thought was very sexy. So this is my more preferred version of Black Orchid, but overall I still don't like the DNA, so I don't see why I should keep any of the fragrances in my collection. I don't really reach for them, but hey, check out the Black Orchid lineup. It's a great scent. It is iconic for a reason, but not for me anymore. And that concludes this video, guys. I'm a bit different as a reviewer because I don't like having a cluttered space in my home, and also I prefer to have quality, not quantity. I like to get rid of my old fragrances to make room for new ones, to get you guys onto new scents that are more interesting, exciting, more relevant in today's time, and maybe they're fragrances that I would reach for more often. What do you guys think about the fragrances I've listed here today? Do you want to get them? Do you regret having them? Do you think my comments were fair? Again, these aren't necessarily bad, but I will give them a new home. Most of these are gonna go to charity because it's just easier to get rid of all these fragrances all in one go. There's only so many fragrances you can gift to friends and family, so I think charity is the way to go. So yeah, sorry guys, there's probably no point in trying to reach out to me to try and get these fragrances. They're probably already gone by the time you're seeing this video anyway. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my previous video on fragrances I regret buying. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.